Okay, well, good evening, everyone, and just like to invite you all back to another Lens Lounge interview this evening. And this evening, we've got somebody in fairly local to me in Midlothian. His name's Mark Elliot, so we'll just bring Mark in just now. Evening,
Hi,
Mark.
buddy. Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, and how are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. It's been a long day at work, so but yeah, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Just kind
Okay.
of time to go. I'm a bit nervous, I must admit. Like I've not done anything like this before. I've always very much been a very kind of keep myself to myself photographer. It's only very recently I think I've discovered the kind of social side of photography since I
Mhm.
kind of joined Vero and met a few people on that. Like before then, I've only really used Flickr and um,
Okay.
I've spent a lot of time just on my own
Right.
taking
Okay.
pictures.
Yeah, I'm much the same. Yeah, I'm much the same. Okay, well, I mean, I think the first thing we can do, Mark, if you maybe just give us a wee idea of your photography journey, and tell us where it all started, and then we can take it from there if you don't mind, please.
Yeah, I've been taking I'm 45 and I've been taking pictures and doing photography as a hobby since I was 8. So I've kind of been a very long time doing photography, and it was all spurred on by my granddad. My granddad was a photographer as part of his duties in the Royal Navy. He did a lot of photography, and after the wars and stuff, I remember spending hours sitting watching war films with him on a Sunday afternoon, and then he would always tipple away into the dining room where he was doing his albums, sort of putting in a lot of albums from photographs he'd taken back then and other albums he was making up where he was copying photographs out certain books and stuff like that to make albums up to kind of and I always got talking to him and we got and it was just a shared interest we both shared, and we then spent quite a lot of time going out with him, doing kind
Mhm.
of cityscapes in Edinburgh when I was kind of 9, 10. And
Okay.
by about 12, I was developing one black and white film and up with him
Uh,
in his dark room upstairs. So I have kind of, yes, there's that. When I remember back to those days of black and white, there's that golden moment where it first appears and you see it coming up. I think everybody looks really fondly at that and thinks how wonderful. A lot of photographers that maybe only know digital look at
Mhm.
that as being wonderful, whereas actually it was terrible. It was awful. Like you're in this dark room, you can't see anything, the chemicals smell,
Aye.
the digital is far easier and much better. So don't let anyone think that. And so I did a lot of black and white. I wasted a lot of money on it. Printing an awful lot out that was just garbage, and I learned knowing I know how to do it, and
Mhm.
but I always preferred being out with my camera. I always
Yeah.
did. I preferred that being out, and I kind of won a couple of competitions quite early on. My granddad was quite one for entering into competitions, and I remember going and having to go up to the city chambers. It was the evening news photographer of the year and stuff like that. So my mum
Mhm.
making me wear my school uniform. So yeah, photography's been a long running thing for me. And then into my teenage years, I became quite an outdoorsy person in my teenage years through a lot of time in the scouts, and I guess I built up quite a rapport for nature as well. And
Mhm.
that's when the landscape photography started kicking in, but
Okay.
not overly. My main love for quite a long time, photography wise, was travel photography and travel. And
Okay.
I sort of did photography when I went on holiday.
Mhm.
Kind of how I did it. I didn't go out with my camera very often. I was still shooting film at that point as well, right through. I didn't actually make the move to digital to 2007.
Okay.
I shot on film all the way through, and I learned on a Pentax K1000, which is a fully manual
Mhm.
camera.
Yeah, yeah,
Eh,
yeah.
From very early on, that relationship between shutter speed, ISO, aperture was kind of born into me. So
Mhm. Mhm.
I've got a deep rooted understanding of that, which I think's helped, all the way through.
Yeah.
I now quite happily shoot in aperture priority if I think it's easier when I'm out there and it's one less thing to think about.
Aye.
I'm able to do that based on the fact that I can flip back to manual quite happily as well.
Yeah.
It's more a choice out of convenience than a choice of inability, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Understand that.
so that's really kind of where I'm at. I spent my whole teenage years in that film days basically doing photography on my own and making up albums. Albums was the thing then. So I have a whole collection of albums from different countries that I've been to, where I would do an album, I would write a journal while I was away, and I would write that in the album. So there was a huge percentage of time which I would class as photography, but I wasn't really out with a camera.
Mm-hmm.
So I was away out when I went on holiday, and my goal was always to capture the essence and the feeling that I had when I was there.
That's good. Yeah.
Enormous amount of time when I came home just using, and my post processing was literally, well, my post processing was cropping with a guillotine. That was my post processing. Like, so cropping, I've always thought is the most powerful tool in editing, and
Mm-hmm.
it's still the one thing I probably do more than most photographers, and I'm not fussy about it either. I'm
Mm-hmm.
quite happy to take a big image and crop it right down if I think actually there's a better image within that image.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
mean, I'm shooting a 45 megapixel Canon camera that I can crop to heck if I like, because
Aye.
my output is 99% on a screen.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not fussy. I'm not precious about how I get to the end result, to be
Yeah.
honest with
Yeah.
you. I do it to get to the end result, and how I get there, I'll do
Exactly.
means that I'm quite comfortable with. I'm not into that whole AI stuff and replacing skies, and that's not me, never will be. But
No, I agree with you. Yeah.
in terms of, but people can do what they like in photography. It's an art form. They can do what they like.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I would never criticize anyone to do whatever they want to do. But
Mm-hmm.
for, yeah, I like to keep it quite in camera,
Yeah.
if I'm honest. Like, I'll still use a graduated filter, even though I know in post, if you really want to, you can do it the other way. But I just
Aye.
prefer in camera out in the site. So I guess coming more now to my story is, after university, I came out and I joined a big construction firm called Balfour Beatty.
Oh
And
yeah.
25 years on, I'm still with them. And I'm quite a steady person. I guess that maybe will get reflected through the whole podcast. I pick something and I just stick with it. I
Mm-hmm.
never reason need to move from Balfour. I really enjoy my work life, my colleagues, the work we do.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked on some wonderful iconic structures in Scotland and that fills me with joy. And I just think that photography has just been a mainstay for me all the time. And I've where I am now, we had kids, and really the pattern of my photography, being travel photography, stayed that way up till really we had the kids, and then we adopted children, and anyone who's adopted children will know that can be quite a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they needed a lot of love and a lot of care and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of presence, and that was more important. Time was the most important thing we could give them than
Yeah.
anything.
Understand. Yeah. Yeah.
So what we did was we gave them the time, and my photography just took a back seat for
Mm-hmm.
5 or 6 years of my life. And then as they got a bit older, about 2016, I kind of picked up the camera again, and I've kind of never looked back from then, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Mainstay in my life. I try to get out at least once a month with a camera. Um, Sometimes not possible. Sometimes I'm out 3 times a month. It really depends on
Yeah.
family and when I get the opportunity. It's very much a case of opportunity though, and I very much learnt to go out and take what I'm given. And I actually really enjoy that. I don't chase light, I don't chase anything. I just go out and I'll see what nature gives me.
Yeah.
My job as a photographer to make the
Mm-hmm.
best of that, and
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
a challenge. And I think
Yeah.
that's a great challenge to have.
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm like as well, Mark. So thanks for saying that. So I think the next thing we move on to, because I know for a long time you were rebuilding your website, you'd said, and I've had a look at it. So I think maybe just give us a wee bit of an intro into what you know, how you modelled it and how it's all faced up, and then it'll give us an idea. Then we can move on to some of the images that are going to be in it. Okay?
Yeah, I guess every photographer should have a website. It's the kind of mainstay of where people can really go and look at your work. Social media is okay, but I wanted to have that home for my photography. I've not got any aspirations to monetize my photography at all. It's
Mm-hmm.
simply I just do for the love. I'm a true amateur. The French
Yeah.
means for the love of that word, and that is what I am. I do it. Anything that would monetize it would always take away from photography to me. So for me, it's definitely, but I just wanted a website where I can say to friends and family and whatever, there's my work, go and have a look. So that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what I did. I have had a website, I've had a Squarespace website for ages, but I just looked at it about, maybe I had it for about 3 years, and I looked at it just over Christmas there, and I thought that just looks dated and rubbish. So
Okay.
I took the time and I stripped it back. Probably very unprofessionally. It was live at all times, so if you'd gone on it, you'd see all sorts of nonsense sometimes.
I know what
uh,
you mean.
but I did all. I started with a mind map, and I'm quite a mind mapper when I've got to think about something. It's maybe a work technique I use, but so I just kind of started with a big E3 sheet, started
Hmm.
with a website in the middle,
Oh
and
yeah.
this what I want. Now, recently in my photography, I've taken a very, in my landscapes especially, I'm trying to always focus on simplicity. I'm not going to say minimalism because I'm not a minimalist photographer, but
Hmm.
I'm trying to keep things simple, and I often think less is more.
Yeah.
I thought the same, I take the same approach with my website. So I kind of wanted it to also not be dated. So I
Hmm.
didn't, well, their photos you took ages ago or that. So I've deliberately not dated images. I've not think, and I came up with an idea that I wanted it open ended. I didn't want it to be. So I started with a list of I suppose what you would call more traditional headlines. So it was like kind of different galleries that I had before, where it was like forests, woodland, woodland,
Hmm.
mountains,
Yeah.
seascapes, and I thought that is what I shoot, but it's not how I shoot it.
Hmm.
Then I sort of looked at my last couple of years of photography. They're a long. I'm quite a procrastinator, right? So through a number of conversations with my wife and other friends, I sort of debated on what I would do, and then I ended up writing a list of, because I guess the whole thing about my website is how my galleries are curated, and I ended up writing a list of things that were kind of open ended and quite broad,
Right. Okay. Yeah.
but it was how I shot. So, for instance, I've
Hmm.
got deep connection with two areas in Scotland which I visit quite a lot, which is the Cairngorms and Glencoe.
Okay.
Glencoe's a bit stereotypical. Everybody likes Glencoe. Who couldn't?
Exactly. Yeah. Aye.
The Cairngorms is a bit deeper. And again, who couldn't like the Cairngorms? But it's an area that we've went to year on year for family holidays, so I've developed quite a connection with it and a body of work.
Hmm.
So I thought they need to stand alone in my gallery rather than getting lost
Aye. Yeah.
because they're important to me.
Hmm.
And
That's what the
everything.
whole thing is. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I've created a bunch of galleries that are quite open ended and focus on what I like to shoot. So if you look at them and you look at the titles, you'll think, well, you'll get a good idea straight away of what I like to shoot.
Hmm.
And I'm probably not really going to change that. And see if I do think up something new or I decide to start shooting something else, I can create another gallery.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So you've got. So what you're saying is you've got like the backbones there for the future. You can just add things in. You know.
yeah. And
That's.
because the last one I had was very much a kind of, you would have to go on every year and update it.
Hmm.
Whereas this one is now I can just go in and drop a picture in as and when I want. And
Okay.
they're very open ended. So I've got things like, um, well, I've got one that's just motorsports at Knock Hill, and I've got
Yeah.
one that's seabird cities. So I've not been very specific about that either. So
Yeah.
There are multiple places in Scotland and England I like to go and shoot seabirds and wildlife photography.
Mhm.
So rather than say, Bempton, Troop Head, I thought let's just
Keep it generic.
birds and that's it. Like, and
Aye.
then if I see a seagull down at Musselburgh, I don't have to worry. And it makes a good picture. I don't have to worry that it's not
In the
in
right place.
a perfect place. Like so,
Aye.
so,
Okay.
and that was really it. It was really just to provide a home that was nice and
Yeah.
simple that could be developed in the future.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, I understand that because I'm currently looking at mine as well because I want to get mine all changed and updated. So it's
Oh,
I'll be doing that a lot of time.
it was easy for me. All I was doing was page out myself in some gallery. For you, I understand, Brian. You're looking, you're trying to monetize your photography and do professional and make a living out of it. So your website's everything nowadays.
Yeah.
That's really got to have it perfect. And but for me, I can't recommend for somebody to manage Squarespace enough. Like without doing a YouTube advert, it was cracking. Like to be honest, I don't have an offer code, unfortunately. Like, but
Right. Uh-huh.
for me, it was absolutely no understanding of website building or
Me
anything.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's just like desktop publishing. It's really simple to use. So I would definitely recommend that. And
Yeah.
I think I'm happy with it as well. And I've still got a few galleries left to do. One is a body of work. I'm just not happy that it's full enough, which is um, doing the kind of islands of Scotland. It's something I want to, I guess,
Mhm.
just through travel and having the children, we've been quite restricted in where we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And getting time away for me has always been really rare. A photography 2, 3 days. I'm always very envious of these people that get to go away for 3, 4 days and
Mhm.
long doing photography. I'd love to do that, but just never get the. I just don't have enough holidays from work. Basically, it's as simple as that.
Okay.
And the family holidays, which are by far the most important that we need to do,
Mhm.
4 days in the year that I can take off specifically for
For what
photography.
you want to do. Yeah. Okay.
And quite often we get taken away for various reasons. I've got other
Aye.
more priorities.
More
So
pressing things. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think what we could do now, we start maybe looking at some of your images then, eh? Just have a
yeah,
right. So I think we'll start with your first one, which was I think it was Glencoe you said you wanted to have a look at, wasn't it?
yeah. It's quite. I think if it's the image, I think you're going to show it's quite a recent image. Actually, it's probably one of the latest images that I've taken. I'm quite proud of.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's have a look at this one then. So have a look at that. This is looks like Glencoe to me, I think. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's the river Pupil with the Buccleuch Moor in the background there. But it
Yeah.
was sort of it was a really interesting day actually. I went up there with a fellow photographer, a guy called Mark McDonald, who I'm
Hmm.
become really good friends with on Vero, and we meet up with another guy called Derek as well. Derek couldn't come that day, and yeah, it was just a day where I got some great images, but literally spent most of the day sitting in the car because the weather was horrendous. Like,
Was it?
oh, it was horrendous.
You
And
see
we
from the
never
photo line.
far from the car, and we had fleeting 5 minutes where it just stopped enough. The problem was that it was just driving rain and
Mhm.
sleet all day. So it snowed overnight, and then it was just driving sleet and snow all day. And the snow was fine, but
Ah,
there's just nothing you can do when it's driving at the front element of your lens, and you
no, you're
just
right.
a
Yeah.
photograph. It's so frustrating because I mind being out myself getting wet at all. I just I just don't want that front element to get wet. And
Aye,
there's so much wiping you can do, and so
that's right.
yeah, this was one of these shots. So we stood out. Essentially, we got to there. It started snowing. We sort of stood there for about 5 minutes. Um, I could see the composition. I just need that few minutes to be able to shoot. And thankfully, I got it. The snow abated. You can see the buckle itself's not even clear because there was another snow shower kind of coming through.
Hmm.
But I got a few minutes there to wipe the lens, compose, and get the shot. And it was just such an obvious shot in a way, or I saw it as obvious with the ice, the pattern kind of almost mimicking the mountain and and the snow just simplified everything. And
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
standing there in the middle of the river, it was iced over pretty much, as you could walk right across the river. So
Mhm.
that was rare in itself to get a view. You wouldn't normally be able to stand there really unless you got the wellies on and went
Yeah,
for it. So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's just a photo I'm quite proud of. It's just a wee bit different, I think, Brian.
Now, what I like about it, it's got, because the way you've got that bit in the middle, like the leading line, and then the dark stuff's like a convergence coming in on either side, pointing towards the mountain. The book odds for
Yeah,
itself, so it's got that sort of pulling you into the image, isn't it? With
yeah,
all especially with the textures and the
yeah.
patterns in the foreground.
I mean, I must admit there was a wee bit of cleaning up of the snow went on
All
in
right.
processing. I'm not. I'll get rid of the odd rock if it really takes away from the aesthetic kind of feel, because it's the image was still there, if you know what I mean. The image was
Yeah,
there. It's
yeah,
just the
yeah.
rocks on the kind of mid ground that
Right.
didn't add to it. And I could have left them in, but I decided on this occasion to use the in-painting tool, and I use Affinity. Rather than I know most people use Photoshop and Lightroom and all that, but I actually use Affinity, partly just because I'm a Scotsman and I didn't want to pay an ongoing. And I didn't think that the whole kind of. I thought Affinity offers me the same package at a fraction of the cost, and
Mhm.
I think Lightroom and Photoshop and all these things are one of these things that you would use 10% of what you're paying for. So
Aye, more likely. Yeah. I
I'll
mean,
pay for it. And I like to keep it simple. So Affinity's been a program I can learn to use, and I'm
yeah.
quite comfortable now using it, and
Mhm.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think I don't do much post processing really. I mean, I tweak curves,
Yeah.
paint a wee bit. If I tend to have a bit of a rule that I'll move movable objects. So I'll move a stone, I'll move a traffic cone, I'll move a thing.
Mhm.
My one thing to that is power lines. I would take a power line out a shot, but I rarely try and shoot with them in the first
I
place.
try and get it. I keep
But,
it out. Keep it
yeah,
out the frame in the field.
but
Yeah.
if there was a landscape that I really liked, that was quite minimalist, and there was a power line going through it, then I would take it out. Yeah.
Mhm. I understand that. It's a lovely image. I like it because it's got that wee bit of mystery, with the blue light of being in the middle of the snow. It's got that sort of, but it's there, but it's not there obviously there. If you understand what I'm saying,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's kind of why I liked it. I mean, Glencoe's a challenge to shoot
Aye.
an individual,
Yeah.
but I love that challenge. I love the
Yeah.
challenge of trying to find something that you've not seen before. I'm not going to
Uh-huh.
say that he's shot before because everybody's shot everything in
Aye.
Glencoe.
Yeah. I know,
But
but it's like everything. It's like a different day, different weather, or different. You can get
yeah,
that little
exactly.
bit difference.
And the most important thing about it is I look at it now and it makes me happy.
That's the main thing. Okay, well, that's lovely. So we'll move on to the next image, which I think's Seacliff, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's from home, Seacliff, if I'm honest.
Obviously, it's Seacliff Beach, and we've got the Tantallon Castle up there. So maybe just give us a wee description because it's lovely. I like the shutter speed that you've chosen here, and just if we give us a wee talk about this one, Mark, because I really like it.
Yeah, well, Seacliff's one of my favourite beaches. I probably go there, pardon me, 3 to 6 times a year. Couldn't say. I go
Hmm.
sometimes a lot, sometimes I go. I prefer it in really grim weather, if I'm honest with you. It's got a
Yeah.
real moody kind of atmosphere about the place.
Hmm.
I love it because every time I go as well, and I do prefer high tide going out, I must admit, but I love the fact that you can be there for a couple of hours
Hmm.
and find different compositions as the tide level goes down and it opens up all these different things. And this composition, for instance, I know is only available in mid tide, and
Yeah.
you have literally about 10 minutes to get it. Otherwise, it
Hmm.
disappears. And the water in the foreground doesn't fall like that in the pool, and the water doesn't come over that rock that kind of leads you up to the castle. So it's kind of finding these, and it's potluck finding them. Really, I could say it's hours worth of in observing, but
Yeah.
it's not.
Scouting and
Kind of just each when I go around there, if I see something I like, I take it, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it
Aye.
doesn't. And Shutter speed, it's my go-to for seascapes, really. It's 2 seconds, I would think that probably is.
Okay.
Between 2 and 0.8 seconds. I tend to Sea Cliff never really gets big waves as such. Oh yeah, if you go in a storm and stuff, you'll get the odd thing. But generally the waves aren't too big.
Yeah.
And I mean I've been there with a few, I actually was there at the start of last year with Mark again, and we got an amazing day down there with some really stormy conditions. But generally the waves aren't that big. So you kind of have to hunt a wee bit, and you need a bit foreground interest, otherwise the sea looks a bit flat. So
Mhm.
this just the sun was in the right space. It's sunset. Sun generally sets there. That must be about August time when the sun sets right behind the castle. And,
Mhm.
yeah, it just was that kind of day, and it all just came together. And there's a kind of nice glow of the sun there.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, it really is just that image. It's just I just love Seacliff Beach. Yeah,
That is lovely. Yeah. Yeah.
and the other end of the beach is fine too. For very often I've been drawn that way, but the last few times I've gone the other way, and I believe it's changed quite a lot since the last storms, and I've not been for a while actually, so I'm quite keen. Again, Mark was down there at the weekend. He was telling me it's changed quite a bit, so I'm quite keen to like the
Okay.
steps washed away and everything from the car park and everything. So quite
Mhm.
interesting to go down and see it again.
Yeah.
That's what I like about seascape photography. It's
Changes
like,
that.
yeah.
Aye. Ever change it. It's got some lovely rocks and textures of the geology down there, hasn't it, as well?
Oh yeah, you can. I've spent. I've got a photograph that I've took down at Seacliff that looks like a mountain scene with the stars, and it's literally just an interface between two rocks.
Mhm.
And I just really like it. And it's something I saw, and I remember posting it thinking, I can see this, but do you really see it? And it was amazing what people came back saying that they saw out of that same photograph that
Mhm.
I didn't see, but they saw. And so
Yeah.
I do.
Mhm.
I'm I'm getting more and more into the kind of small scene type stuff and the more abstract stuff, but I don't. I'm not a macro photographer. It's not something I've ever been able.
No.
I think just because my knees are dodgy, to be honest, and I can't be bothered getting down on my knees half the time. Like I don't tend to shoot overly low either, but a lot of people shoot quite low all the time, whereas I tend to
Mhm.
like my photographs to reflect what I see when I'm standing there.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, doke. Well, I think, okay, so this is a very abstract one, Mark. So, now to me, it looks like ice of some nature, but am I right or wrong?
Yeah, no, you're bang on. It literally is just ice in the River Etif. Um,
Okay.
I took it back in March last year. I went myself and a wee treated myself to a wee 3 day photography trip in Glencoe.
Hmm.
And I got on the second day, I just got a really blue sky day, and I really did try. My goal was always to go down Glen Etif that day and take some pictures, and I went down and back up and really found nothing very inspiring that day at all. I'd shot some landscapes, but nothing that I was overly content with.
Yeah.
So I guess I stopped, had lunch, got my jet boil out, made a coffee, and then I deliberately, and I do this quite often if I'm needing a bit of inspiration, I go a little walk without my camera. So I put the camera, I
Hmm.
left the camera in the car and just went down to actually quite a favourite waterfall of mine in Glen Etif. Um, and looking down, I just saw there's the waterfall, and then above it on the rocks there was pools of ice,
Hmm.
kind of like rock pools, I guess you'd call them,
Yeah.
full of water. But this one, for whatever reason, the ice just looked like this. So I think you've got ice over stones.
It looks like it. Yeah.
I
Hmm.
can't explain why the ice was like that. It just was and it was like that in a number of pools, and then some that
Hmm.
was like cracked. So it just caught my eye, and I just kind of orientated the camera with my 7200 lens, or it was maybe the I think it was actually the 100 to 500 I had with me that holiday, so it was a bit hefty for doing that kind of shot, to be honest, because I remember having to, the minimum focus distance is something like 1.3 meters, and I had to put my tripod up on the center column, which I try not to do, to get that shot so I could get the focus right. But you make the shot work, you know. I mean, yeah, some would argue that it's slightly out of focus, the bottom ISO, which obviously stands out a bit, and if I'd focus stacked it, but I really can't be doing all that, to be honest. Like, it was kind of, it's fine.
No, but I think looking at it, the main attractions, the
kind of the abstract.
I don't know how you describe it, but the abstract,
yeah.
with the curves
Yeah.
and all and everything, But
Yeah.
it's got that sort of, and it must be the reflected light coming up from the rocks, because it's got a very subtle yellowy brown look about it, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah, that was definitely the colour of the rocks below,
Right.
the kind of granity rocks down in that bit. So yeah, it's a definite kind of yellowy browny shot. I've not messed with the colours at all.
And so I mean, I take it that's the position you've not turned it 380 degrees or anything. That's how you actually,
No, Brian, I honestly can't quite remember what I did. I'll have done my usual there and shot a bit wider, because I do that quite a lot when I very much, since I've gone to digital, have a view that I go out and I capture data with my camera. And I can tweak it in post-processing after. Yeah, I probably have rotated that at some point to get the lines.
But that's fair enough.
Yes, I remember always seeing the thing coming down in the top third. I remember that always being there, but whether it was exactly that angle, I couldn't tell you, if I'm honest with you. And it's definitely cropped, and I do that quite a lot. And one thing I've learned is that I was very guilty for a long time of trying to take too cropped an image, and often I would look back on my screen and think, I wish I'd shot a bit wider. So I purposefully now quite often take an image and then I'll zoom it back 10, 15 mil and just take another image. Just as it's almost like a back pocket kind of insurance certificate. So
I think just actually before you go, I think that's actually a good point to make, maybe for some people, that because I know if we do focus stacking, it's always better to just what you've described, just to come out a wee bit, because if you do focus stacking, sometimes when the stack comes together, you get like a funny border around it, and that gives you that comes stacking in. But I love abstract, I love it.
I mean, it's funny, focus stacking. I know how to do it. I've tried it before, but I just rarely find myself in a position I need to do it. I'm a very much an acceptably sharp kind of guy. I certainly, if I ever focus stack, it would only be on this kind of shot. I would never focus stack on a wide angle landscape shot.
No. It's only if you're in. To me, I'm the same, Mark. I think if we're in close and you've got quite a difference in height, and we kind of get it to, if F11 or even up to 13 doesn't get it, and even at that, I maybe only do. I think the biggest one I've done once was like a leaf, because the leaf is all kind of twisty.
Oh, definitely. You look at somebody like Simon Booth's work on YouTube. I don't know if you know Simon.
I do, yeah.
And I fully understand, and I'm in awe of his work.
Absolutely.
And stuff like that. But I've just not got the time for that at the moment. And I might go into that kind of detail, but a bit of me doesn't. I don't know. It's a bit like panels.
Yeah.
I always, a few years ago, I had it in my head that I wanted to learn properly how to do panels and stitch them together and everything. And then I've now got a 45 megapixel camera, and I'm just lazy, and I just letterbox crop them now all the time. And I know some people say there's certain ways for panels that if you do it, it looks better because of the focal length and stuff like that. And I would get into that if I was a professional, but I'm not a professional.
And I think we all know panels are. I mean, don't get me. I do create panel images, but they're only. you can only really see it if you're going to get them printed big on a wall somewhere, you
Yeah,
know. So
exactly. And I'm not doing that. So
no,
I'm,
exactly. Yeah,
I guess it's about knowing what the capabilities of your equipment is, and
exactly.
getting the
Yeah,
best of your results, and just without giving yourself grief. To be
yeah.
honest, like
Aye.
if I could letterbox crop it, why sit, for hours stitching an image together?
Yeah,
Like I just,
totally. Yeah. Okay, then so we'll move on to the next image. I like this one coming up. This is a red squirrel, but I can't go. This is a rather interesting photograph. So was this, I mean, just a wee bit about this. Was this actually just by chance, or was it somebody
no,
you knew, or?
no, you don't. If that was by chance, that would be absolute. I'd be buying a lottery ticket tomorrow if I had that kind of luck, Brian. No, somebody like me who doesn't have much time, if you want to do some interesting wildlife photography, I think you have to kind of pick your places. And this is at a hide um, owned by a photographer called Neil McIntyre up at the Cairngorms.
Okay.
I do a lot of red squirrel photography, all of which pretty much has been in hides.
Okay.
Generally Neil's hide or another guy called Mark Hamlin's
Right.
hide. Um, that allows me to have good opportunity to spend a few hours getting semi-decent shots.
Mhm.
It gives me the opportunity to create all sorts of different looks to it. I try not to go for the stereotypical squirrel on a branch eating a nut type thing, and look for more. So I noticed the squirrels were running over that branch to go
Mhm.
to a feeder and stuff, actually just the other side of the tree.
Yeah.
So everybody else was photographing across at this other tree. I kind of noticed that they jumped up onto there and then jumped. So literally, and there is an element of spray and pray with that shot as well. Again, the R5 can shoot it, God knows how many, I think it's 20 frames per
Frames a
second,
second or something.
something like that. So yeah, I set it up, and the focus on it's pretty good as well. I maybe could have been a wee bit sharper there if I'm honest, but it was quite an early morning and I just wasn't getting. I think that's more ISO softness than anything
Mhm.
with the shot, and it's moving damn fast as well. To be
Aye,
honest,
will be. Yeah, aye, exactly.
and
Yeah.
and I think just so yeah, I probably had it on about 1:6:40 or something like that. Probably could have been faster, and I just shot it. So once it came into view on the heather, it always jumped up the heather. So I kind of probably got it running along and jumping up there about 10,
Mhm.
just kept shooting. And yeah, I probably done about 6 or 7 squirrels passing that branch in that morning.
Mhm.
Get it to get that
That particular one. Aye.
the
Like it's
perfect
nice though with
moment. Let's say like so.
it's nice with the bokeh in the background because it just makes it. I mean, it doesn't have to be. To me, looking at it, it looks sharp enough to me. It doesn't have to be
Yeah,
because you're not. It's not going. You go put your eyes up to the screen to look at it. You know what I mean?
no, and
It's
it's not close up. It's an
yeah.
environmental portrait, and that's kind of why I liked it. I don't. I do quite a lot of wildlife photography, and I try not to go too close in. I like to see them in their natural
Natural
habitat,
environment. Yeah,
as
yeah.
opposed to just a picture of a squirrel close up. Don't
Mhm.
get me wrong. When I was up in the Cairngorms in October, we had this cheeky red squirrel that kept coming outside our lodge, and I got some cracking photos of it by putting some hazelnuts on the table and kind of over the week getting it to come along and jump over and onto the table. And and actually, that year I went to Mark's hide, and funny, there was a sparrowhawk flying about the trees that morning, which seemed to spook the squirrels quite a lot. And I never got many squirrel shots, but I got, so I actually favour my shots from the lodge and the squirrels that were kicking about the lodge that year rather than the ones from the hide. But um, yeah, I think if you want to do wildlife photography and you don't have the time to do proper wildlife photography, and I would love to have the time to properly stake out areas and work out where animals are and sit for hours getting the photos, but I don't have that time in my life. So
Understandable.
I
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
pay for the privilege to go in these places,
Mhm.
and do a spot of wildlife photography, and it's only really for the squirrels.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. It's a lovely image. Okay, right. So I think moving on now. I think this is quite interesting because from what I understand, you've been getting into we'll use the abbreviation to start with, ICM, but people don't know what that is. It's intentional camera movement, where you use creativity in your camera to get a bit a different look and a feel. And I've got some images to come up, but I'm just really quite curious to find out what was it that inspired you to get into ICM, or what did you want to, what was the thing for it you want to get into it? Because and we can talk on something a bit later. But what was the first thing, Mark, that really interested you to do it?
The first thing well, I'll be honest with you, the first time I saw ICM photography, I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw quite a lot of images of woodlands where it was like trees
Yes.
stretching up and down vertically, and I didn't really like that because in my mind, ICM to me is about movement, and it was work by a couple of people that I used to follow on Flickr.
Mm-hmm.
A girl called Anne McGrath and a Joanne Bedard that I saw that I follow on Flickr, and they just stood out to me. Joanne takes a lot of images of gulls.
Oh yeah.
We were
Yeah.
joking about Musselburgh Beach earlier, but yeah, she literally does go to somewhere like Musselburgh or somewhere like that and takes pictures of gulls.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff was kind of seascapey. And then when I joined Vero, I kind of saw the work of Shona Perkins as well.
Yeah.
With all of their ICM images, the thing that really grabbed me was it was a way to convey feeling,
Mm-hmm.
movement
Mm-hmm.
that was actually going on. Now you do a lot. I quite like long exposure photography, but in
Yeah.
a way that creates something that's totally unreal, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it creates a nice abstract image, but in a way it's not what I feel when I'm standing looking at that image. There's an element of serenity sometimes people say with the smooth water and stuff, and I get that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Totally.
I've
Yeah. Yeah.
plenty images like that. But what I like about ICM is, for me, and this is I think quite a personal thing because I don't hear many people say this, its main function for me and where I will choose to use ICM is where I want to convey a feeling of movement, or and that could be from the wind to the sea to a
Mm-hmm.
vehicle going round a corner, or a seagull flying, or even light rays coming through a forest.
Mm-hmm.
I'll use ICM deliberately to enhance the movement in the shot and create a more abstract image. And yeah, it's great for getting rid of distractions and creating I just like it as well, if I'm honest. I just like the look of it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think that my main function for you, where I go to it, is when I want to convey movement and
Okay.
create quite a nice abstract shot, and I do like it. What I
Mm-hmm.
have found from shooting it is, though, it's very difficult, and I guess I hoped ICM would just become another way of shooting in my bag, and I could go out and decide that day, oh, I'm going to shoot this, and then I might shoot that, and I might use this and that. But ICM, you kind of have to get into a bit of a workflow,
Feeling as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
movement, and feel. I hate to use that horrible kind of phrase that people go on about like a flow state and stuff. I'm not really that kind of person, but I do feel it with ICM. You kind of need to get into that
Mm-hmm.
state where you're immersed in the
Yeah.
movement, because that sort of helps you, the feeling of it. So yeah, I use ICM, and I can stand for hours on a beach photographing one scene, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
very new to it. So I've only been really doing it. I've tried it before, but I only really took to it this year, and I did or last year now. Sorry, we're in the new year has passed a few months because we're in February already. But last year, and I I guess I saw Shona's work on Vero, and that was just at the point I was. Mark and Derek and I, we got ourselves a wee group together, and we go out and shoot, and and I was becoming out of my shell of being a very personal photographer into somebody who enjoys the social side of photography. And I thought, I'm going to give a workshop a go. I've never done anything like that before in my life, but
Okay.
I very much, because I'd been out before and tried it, and I'd got a few good images, but they were by pure luck. I mean, I knew what I was doing. I got it that I had to, maybe use an ND filter to slow the
Yeah.
shutter down, but I
Yeah.
didn't really know what I was doing with the movements. I didn't really know. So that workshop was shown. She's very good at taking you back to the basics, but she
Mhm.
very soon knew that I was a fairly competent photographer, so she didn't need to teach me what ISO was and anything like that.
Yeah, the
And
general
she,
stuff. Aye. Uh-huh.
yeah, and she cut straight to the chase, and we had a very productive day of learning ICM. And she didn't overly, really forcefully teach me anything. She just guided me in a very subtle,
Mhm. Yeah.
calming, informative way.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that came out of her teaching is that it is an intentional camera movement.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
not a drop the camera or spin it and just see what happens and see
Mhm.
what comes out. And I really resonate with that because I want to intentionally use it to create a feeling that I feel when I'm standing there
Mhm.
on a beach, or I've only really used it for seascapes so far and some woodland stuff. And maybe one or two shots in the Cairngorms, but it's something I definitely want to explore. But
Mhm.
it's something that's very much in infancy for me
See. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
terms of my
Okay.
development of the
Yeah.
technique and what I need to do to. I've had the basic training, probably passed my driving test, let's say.
You get out and do the
I need
practical
to
work
go
now.
out and learn how to do it in the snow. I
Right.
need to learn how to
Yeah.
do it in the rain.
Yeah.
I need to learn how to
And
do
that's the
it.
thing. That's a good thing. Photography, we're learning all the time. And I think just for people that are listening in, who Mark's talking about, Shona, her name's Shona Perkins, but she's more known as My Beautiful Scotland, and our work is absolutely amazing. So I think what we can do, let's have a look at some of your ICM then. Let's see what you've been
Yeah.
creating. So
Yeah.
we'll pull up the first one, which is, I think it's a motorsport one from memory.
Yeah.
One when I first saw it on Vero, and I went, "Oh, that's some hill," jokingly. But anyway, this is.
Yeah.
So just quickly talk us through this one. This is really quite
Yeah.
interesting.
I guess my motorsports photography very much. I like to find minimalism in the track, and I use a technique quite a lot. I think some people call it a Dutch. I can't even remember what they call it, a Dutch curve or something like that, where you
Right.
basically deliberately shoot the camera at an angle, a jointy angle all the time.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So I do that quite a lot. It creates more kind of abstract lines, and often it excludes um, parts of the image you don't want to see,
Mhm.
advertising hoardings and stuff like that. So I do a lot of motorsports photography, and it was only actually about a year ago. People might think that's just an out, that's a pan that's gone wrong, whereas it's not. It's a deliberate
Mhm.
intent. I can pan quite successfully, 1 in 40 or something like that, but that's probably shot at quarter of a second or something like that
Yeah.
shot. So,
Yeah.
or maybe a bit more less actually, maybe an eighth or something like that, because they are moving pretty fast. So I basically took the concept of ICM, and I remember saying that to Shona on the day and saying, I'm going to try and apply this to motorsports. And this is the kind of results of it. I've done it. I've only done it a couple of times at Knockhill last year. So that's the Formula 4, that
Yeah.
one of the support classes to the British touring car racing. And yeah, motorsport is just it's a bit different from everything else I shoot, but I really enjoy it. I love the kind of fast action of it, the kind of thing. And yeah, I can go and shoot 3,000 pictures in a day quite easily up at Knockhill to
So with
get.
this then, if you're doing ICM with this, how? I mean, a quarter second, because that's going to be moving fast. I take it you're not having to move too quickly to get it. Just maybe a wee movement, is it?
All I do, Brian, really is I just pan as normal, but I'm
Okay.
almost deliberately going the shutter speed so slow that you would never get
Yeah.
a a proper pan.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm kind of panning as normal. So you can see I've followed the car because it's not kind of streaked right across the image, but it is out of focus and moved enough to create the kind of and I think that gives I personally think that gives quite a feeling of speed. I think I need to hone the skills a wee bit more because I think some people will look at that image and think that it's just a blurry car. But for me, that conveys the feeling of motion. It's so simple. I can go to Knockhill and I've done it, put it to 1/320th of a second and get a pin sharp image of that car going past. But it looks very static to me. It doesn't convey something. I guess I'm trying to convey things in my images.
Okay, well, let's have a look at the next one then. Let's see, because the next ones are seascapes, so we'll have a look at the next. This one's quite interesting. There's a lot of different colours going on here. So, I mean, I can see, if I was guessing it, it's some type of headland or rock area with water coming in and sun, but, you know, I'm not quite sure where.
Yeah, no, you're bang on. It's down at Coldingham Bay.
All right,
it's actually just past the actual Coldingham Bay itself. There's another wee inlet that you can walk up to on the headland. And I was standing there, I saw the sunrise coming up. I saw the kind of dark, moody skies. It was quite a stormy day. Really, the sunrise was the only decent piece of weather I got all day. After that, it got pretty grim. And I fought against the rain most of the day. But ICM kind of allows you to do that because you can put a lens hood on and just kind of, as long as you don't shoot into the look for the kind of things. So it's forgiving. And that really was it. And I contoured the headland to get that movement. And I guess I shoot from a similar style as Shona, that I tend to, with my ICM, I certainly favour the look of doing a longer exposure ICM, so that's probably about 2 seconds.
Right.
And I contour down the headland and then I tweak my shutter speed after. I generally start at 2 seconds and then tweak the shutter speed down or up.
Just depending on the
where I want the movement to reach. Now, I've got a lot of work in getting my movements a bit smoother. I think I tend to, at the moment, move too far, and I need to move a bit less and a bit slower and more controlled, but I'm getting there. And it takes a lot of practice. And this was a really windy, horrible buffeting day as well. So yeah, and I just liked it. I liked the water come streaming in, that kind of white line. The rocks in the foreground were quite hard to deal with, but I felt if I just contoured the headland, I would see what happens. And it was very much, this is one of the ones that worked. So it was an experimental shot, which all ICM really isn't. Some of them will work, some won't work. And I think it's getting to know what you know is going to just not work straight away, so that you just don't shoot it. And that's where Shona will be far better than me. She'll be able to go out and say, nah, that's not going to work. I'm not going to waste my time shooting that. Whereas I tend to have to.
Yeah, and I think it's at the point, I don't know, well, you'll probably agree, but when you see Shona's work, you just know it's hers. It's got, you can just tell, there's something that tells you it's her. You know, it's her style, I think. I don't know what it is, but I just feel that it's, you know, I can see an ICM, you just pretty much know it's hers on social media.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's lovely. But
yeah, they're very individual. Very smooth. It's the smoothness that I really I like, because it's the smooth and the feeling of movement. And it's the feeling of, I keep going back to that, like I say, it's the feeling of movement that drives me to want to use it. And it creates nice simplistic.
I think it's also just what you talked about earlier. I think it's in some ways it's a wee bit like long exposure, because you don't know what it's going to be like, because we can't see it, but by moving it and then you see it in the back of the viewfinder, you're like, oh, I like this, or right away. And sometimes you can tell right away you don't like it, you know.
And one thing I've found with ICM as well, and you know, the viewfinder, even, or the back screen on the back of the Canon is pretty good, but still, there's plenty of times I've shot something, thought I really liked it, and got it home, put it up on the big screen, and thought, no, it just doesn't work. I think sometimes an image can look much better if you look at it small.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, we'll go to the next one. Now, this is really getting quite ICM to me. You know, I think it's got a really, it's I couldn't. I mean, obviously it's at the coast, but it's to me we're going out to the beach to the water. But then maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're bang on. It's actually shot on Gullen Beach, and it was
Oh,
actually
okay.
shot on the workshop I did with Shona.
Ah, right.
A
Okay.
really nice kind of pastel light night, and I
Hmm.
was just she was sort of showing me about kind of contouring the land and stuff, and that's really all I was doing was kind of contouring the headland there. And that's all it was, and it just happened to be an image. It works really well because the tide's going out, and
Hmm.
the reason you get that kind of shiny look on the sand is simply because it's wet.
Yeah. Okay. Got you. Yeah.
So it's finding the right place to focus. Actually, I think if anything, I think my focus could be improved as I probably focused on the headland, but I think if I was focusing on more in the foreground, that would just bring the detail out a little more, and I've
Hmm.
maybe
Hmm.
moved a bit. But it's like that was one of my very first ICM shots with Shona, and I'm quite proud of it. I think it just looks quite abstract and
It's got that look in it, and I think what's nice about it because you can almost where you've got that luminance coming from the whatever the ambient light. You know, if was it sunset? Did you say, or was it
it was sunset, yeah.
sunset? So you still got the ambient light in the sky, and it's just giving that luminance. But you've got what I love about it. There's I'm not going to say the leading line, but the white does kind of lead you out, and then you've got
Yeah,
that
I
bit, the darker bit coming in from the left, and it's just stopping your eye going out too far to the left, and it brings you around to all these beautiful pastely, you
yeah,
know, the
yeah. It's a
hues.
kind of zigzag up through the middle, isn't there?
Yeah,
Like, so, yeah, yeah.
aye,
No,
that's wonderful. Yeah, okay, so let's look at the next one then. Let's see what we've got. This could be the Sahara Desert.
yeah. Or it could be Harris, or it could be Lewis, and that's something I quite like about um, ICM, to be honest. It's
Mhm.
actually at Coldingham Bay down in
Is
the
it?
Highlands, yeah. And
Wow.
it's maybe a bit wishy-washy now. I look at it again, if I'm honest. I've got another one where there's a bit more detail in the mound,
Hmm.
which I quite like. Um, but yeah, no, it is. It's down at Coldingham, and it was on quite a windy, horrible day again. But you just have that ability with ICM to you're looking for contrast all the time, eh? And
Aye,
there was just
yeah.
different contrasts, and that's what I saw. Looking for the contrast, it's a bit like what you've got to do when you look for a good black and white image.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Got you.
Past the color, and you have to look for the contrast. Like, and that's exactly um
So
probably
so the
I don't see much black and white
right.
because
So you're saying
I get up on grey days. But yeah,
I
um,
so take it when you talk about the contrast. 'Cause what's that? What you're meaning is that's to define some of the shapes within the ICM image that you're creating. Yeah.
yes, aye, the light
Yeah.
and dark and the
Yeah.
color tones and if you've no contrast, you won't have any definition. Like
Hmm.
you're really in my mind, you're looking for that contrast to then flow into
Hmm.
shapes and create the image and the movement. Like so, there's that could be contrast of still and movement. So you've got
Yeah.
here, you've got a hill up the back, you've got the sea coming in, and you've got a river kind of flowing out,
Ah,
and
that's a river. Ah, right. I've got you
yeah,
now. Okay.
and it
Yeah.
all just kind of comes together.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, with hindsight, looking at that, I actually wish I'd sent you my other image from there now, which I've got an image. It's very similar, but there's more definition in the back hills actually. But
Okay.
I like that one too. Like so, but yeah, it's work in progress for me, the ICM, and it's something that I really enjoy doing.
Hmm. Oh, well, thanks for
I
sharing those.
love the
That's
freedom of
wonderful.
right, the freedom of ICM. Generally I go about and I've got a blooming backpack that weighs 16 kilos, and I've got a camera in it, three lenses and a tripod and a whole of the filters and a bottle of water. And it's so heavy. It's so sometimes you get to wherever you've hiked and you're just knackered. You need to take 10 minutes just to get into your creative space again. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and with ICM you can pitch up there to Coldingham. Generally you only really need your 70 to 28 to 70 on or something like that. I shoot with a 24 to 105 generally.
Right.
And that on the camera with a six-stop filter, a wee shoulder bag, and a bottle of water, and then you're out all day.
And I think the other benefit of ICM is you can pretty much do it anywhere at any time. Really, I've seen a lot of people doing it. And you didn't the weather doesn't. In fact, you can probably do it in any weather as well.
Yeah,
Really. So,
yeah, and it's what you resonate with. I gravitate towards the coast and
mhm.
mountains
Yeah,
because that's where I like to be on those sorts of days. I
yeah.
just love that. I love that. I much prefer walking along a beach on a cold, wet, windy day than I do walking on a hot, sunny day. To be honest with
Aye,
you,
me
and
too.
and 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 and, and and there's just something about the exposure. There's something about looking out to the sea and knowing that it just goes on forever and it's
Mhm.
not going to stop. It doesn't matter what's going on in life and how important everybody thinks they are.
But
None
that's
of
the
us
benefit.
are important or have any effect
Yeah, I think
on.
that's the thing about photography. It's all about it's part of the mindfulness thing as well because it clears your mind when you're out there and what you're doing, and I lose myself in nature when I'm out, Mark. And everything I'm thinking about, I don't think about anything. It's a way.
Yeah, no, same. And it's my way of, but I also see photography as my way of seeing nature
Yeah.
more so than I think I would because you've got to really observe when
Hmm.
you're out there with a camera to take a picture. You can pitch up and just take a picture of the beach.
That was most enlightening, Mark, about your ICM, and it was quite good that I think that you touched base with Shona as well to give you a help with that because I know that I first came across her like a few years back. But I heard her on an interview with Kim Grant. I just thought her stuff's amazing, and what she does, and I'm glad it's helped you along. It's good.
Yeah, definitely. I would well recommend if anyone's looking to get into ICM. I don't think you'll get a better teacher, to be honest, and the workshops are well worth the money. Like so,
Yeah,
um, so yeah,
that's great.
go
Okay,
to our
right.
website and sign up for a
Yeah.
workshop. So
Super.
yeah,
That's grand. Well, thank you very much for that. And thanks for sharing your images with us tonight, Mark. It's been great. So I think we maybe just get, maybe the last question. If you just think about
uh-huh.
what is it you do? I mean, you talked about getting into photography, but what does photography give you, or what do you need it to give you? How does that work in your
Oh,
mindset through your photography?
photography is everything to me, really. Apart from my family, obviously, and my wife and my children, really out with that and my work, it's kind of all I really think about, whether it be watching YouTube videos where I'm watching kind of guys just having fun. And I tend not to watch teaching ones. I tend to watch the ones where the guys are just having a laugh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I love yeah, I know he's the big guy, but Thomas Heaton, you can't beat his
Aye.
chin. Like that series in Mongolia that he just did
Oh
was
no.
fantastic. Like,
Gosh. Amazing. Aye.
so
Yeah.
um, you know, so what does photography really mean to me? It's it's in the avenue for my creativity more
Mhm.
than anything.
Yeah.
It gives me a reason to go out into nature and see nature and really examine nature,
Hmm.
which then leads to a connection with nature. And, the more
Yeah.
you spend time out and reading it,
Absolutely.
the more you connect with it and the more you care about it. And the more
Hmm.
you read about it and the more you realize that it's so fragile and we need to take care of it.
Yeah.
Um, I think that photography very recently has given me friends and community that it never did before, but it also gives me personal space and time that I
When
need
you need it. Yeah.
to
Exactly.
process and just relax. It's a stress relief to me. Photography is like my tap at the
Hmm.
bottom of my pressure valve, and I can turn it on, and it's the overflow. It lets all the pressure
It
out, and I
evaporates.
don't
Aye.
boil over, so.
Aye.
So that because my job is stressful, I run multi-million pound construction projects,
Hmm.
at the
Hmm.
moment through the city centre of Edinburgh and stuff like that. I've got everybody not wanting things built. I've got people wanting things built. I manage a lot of stress, but
Hmm.
photography has always, and I think because I've always had photography, I've always had it as a bit of a stress relief tool. So I
Yeah.
think you hear a lot of people who tell you about photography and how it's helped with their mental health. And I
Yeah.
think it does that for me too. But I've never really got this big epiphany of it because it's always done it. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just
It's probably
always
ingrained, it's
back.
probably impregnated into your way of what you are because you've done it for so
Yeah.
long. But but it's good to recognise it, isn't it? And I think
Uh-huh.
that's the key thing, you know?
But one thing I think photography gives me, Brian, more than anything, is it allows me to share with friends and family and viewers on YouTube, or not YouTube, sorry, on Vero or Flickr or whatever platform, or people look at my website. It lets me show them how I see the world.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
it lets that because I think I look at the world very much through a telephoto lens.
Hmm.
I use a telephoto. I think if I had to pick one lens, if I was only allowed, if I had to go on a desert island with one lens, I would pick myself to 200.
Aye.
Without a shadow of a
Aye.
doubt.
Aye.
Like so, yeah. What else does it give me? It gives me excitement. It gives me adventure. Those
Mhm.
moments when you just see light.
Aye.
It gets you out of the house in the morning to experience the moments in nature that you wouldn't experience
Yeah.
if you didn't have
Indeed.
a reason to
Yeah.
be there.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's what photography gives me. Like it gives me memories, good
Aye.
memories.
Yeah. And
If,
you're probably like me. You're probably like me. Most of the times when the light's at its best, that's when people tend to go away and they miss the show.
yeah, I'm not a big well, I am a big I like good light, but I am not somebody that particularly chases sunrise or sunset
No, 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 me
because
neither.
I've not got the ability to do that in my life.
Yeah.
But I also prefer before sunrise and before sunset. I'm a sucker for a silhouette image with a glow behind, like so.
Aye.
I really like that. I don't really like the sun rising just above the horizon in my picture. I find
Mhm.
that too contrasty. I find it a bit cliche, let's say. Um, so it's just photography's God, it's even something to spend my time looking at gear and indulge in
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
look at and stuff like. I mean, I don't spend. Well, I do spend a lot on photography gear, but I don't tend to change a lot and get the latest thing. I tend to think a long time and then
And then go for it.
a lot of
Aye.
money on something because I think I need it, but I'll keep it for 5 or 10 years and I
Well, that
tend
was
to
just
second hand mostly, like so.
yeah. Well, that was
But
just like what you're talking about there, because I mean, what I've done lately, just you were talking about telephoto, but what I've done, I went and got a Tamron lens, and it gives me 50 multi 400, and it's amazing, you know. So it's
well, yeah, funny you say that. One the latest lens I ever bought actually was a 24 to 240 mil.
mm,
I deliberately bought it because I find quite a lot that we'll go out a hike with the family and stuff like that, and I can take my camera. I don't
mhm.
want to faff about with too many lenses and
Aye,
annoy
yeah,
everybody by taking a tripod and spending my life. But at the same time, there's some times where we're going up like one of the when we went up to the Cairngorms on in October last year, we did quite a long family walk
mhm.
up over Cairngorm, up to Ben McDooey, and then away back. Some
Yeah,
fantastic images from that, which were
mhm.
all just kind of point and shoot,
Aye, handheld and yeah,
not spend too long. And that lens gave me that ability to do that.
ability, yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't have had with all my bigger, fancier Canon L glass, but
Mhm,
that
mhm.
24 to 240 is a cracking wee
Aye,
lens for
yeah,
that, and
yeah.
it just does the job. So yeah, gear makes a difference. People will tell you gear doesn't make a difference. It makes a difference to me. Like yeah, it
Aye.
certainly gives you the
Aye.
ability. I've
To do
just
different things,
recently
yeah.
moved over to case filters, the magnetic revolution ones, and they are a revolution. They're fantastic things.
Mhm.
Like they're brilliant. Even the color coding, like it's so simple. I mean, it used to take hours in a cold beach trying to work out there was a 6 stop or a 9 stop.
Aye,
You couldn't read it
aye.
properly. And these things, you just know by the color straight away. It's brilliant.
Anything makes life easier.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Mark, it's been amazing tonight. Thank you very much for giving us up your time and sharing the images with us. It's been absolutely wonderful. So, what I'd like to say, people who maybe want to connect with you and find out where you are, could you maybe just tell them? Because I know you're on Vero, but I don't know I can't remember what your Vero name is. If it's just your name or because mine isn't. But if you could just let people know in your website.
Yeah, I use the kind of the captures in time as my kind of photography handle. It's something I've
Yeah,
used for a while. I was amazed when I actually got it because I thought it was a cracking title, and I was amazed people would actually, not somebody wouldn't have snapped it up. So yeah, you'll find me as just captures in time.
super.
If you
Okay.
Google that, you'll find my website, and from there, yeah, I use Vero and I use Flickr as well. I've never taken to Instagram; it's too commercialized for me, and it's too many people showing
Yeah.
me pictures of their dinner and stuff like that. So,
Exactly. No, but listen, Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you very much indeed for tonight.
perfect.
It's been wonderful and
Oh, it's been too, and we'll try and get out and shoot, Brian. I'll drop you a text and we'll
excellent. We'll do that. I'd love that. That'd be brilliant. So I hope everyone's enjoyed this talk, and especially the ICM thing, because it's something that I do dabble in, and and think maybe one day I'll give Shona a bell and go, and of course a workshop based on what you've said, because I do like doing it, and I've had some happy accidents, I would say, with
Yeah, no,
ICM.
well, I was the same, and that was the thing, and it was a hat, and I think if you can recognise that, that's the main thing.
Aye, yeah,
It's a happy
excellent.
acting, but to really know what you're doing, you need
Yeah,
to kind of
makes a
go back
difference.
to
Yeah.
basics like that.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Mark, once again. It's been wonderful, and I hope everyone's enjoyed this. Okay, thanks. Okay,
Thanks, bye.
bye. Good night. Bye.